Assalamu alaikum, you're watching Views and News and I'm Faisal Rehman live from our Islamabad studios. Today we'll be talking about this ongoing tension in the Asia-Pacific region, especially between the Chinese and the Taiwanese, and also the foreign forces which are present there. The UK has also sent its aircraft carrier, whereas two US these giant aircraft carriers along with their destroyers, they're already present in the region close to Philippines. Now the Chinese the other day, they have in fact just sent a message across. What we have learned over a period of time, that Chinese messages are very straightforward now. Their concerns are there, as we always talk about them, but having said that, the kind of pressure that has been exerted on the Chinese government through Quad or through AUKUS or through other means for that matter, that is something which is pretty concerning for the region. Now, where will it lead? What sort of a dispute can it create? Is it possible that there could be a conflict, a military conflict between the Chinese and the Taiwanese? The Americans, they have also said that $1.8 billion of military support will be given to the Taiwanese. Though when we talk about the trade between these two, it's enormous, it's unbelievable. You talk about the manufacturing of the chips, remember, that are being used in planes or cars and other high-tech industries. They are manufactured in Taiwan. And just imagine, just because of the COVID, so many plants have been shut down all over the world because of the lack of those chips. So this is of prime concern. I'm just talking about one single product. Other than that, when we talk about the emerging scenarios in the region, that is also alarming, not only for those particular countries in the Far East, but a lot more countries are also in fact keeping an eye on the situation. Now, what could be the possible outcome? This is going to be our topic of discussion in our today's program. So quickly, let me introduce you to our panelists. We have with us in our studio on my right is Nasir Ali Khan Sahab, former ambassador. Sir, thank you so much for your time and pleasure to have you, Nasir Sahab. And we have with us Dr. Ziaul Haq Sahab, Director Peace and Conflict Studies, CASS, expert on foreign affairs. Thank you so much, Dr. Sahab. And we have with us Dr. Tughril Yamin Sahab, senior analyst and a columnist. Sir, thank you so much, Tughril Sahab, for your time also. Nasir Sahab, when I was in fact doing my research on this particular issue of China and Taiwan, I was surprised to see that only around 15 countries recognize Taiwan as a sovereign state. Countries like Honduras, like Swaziland, and small islands perhaps in the Central American region, I would say. No major country recognizing them. They have no sort of any standing in the United Nations. But so when it comes to business and trade, obviously Taiwan or made in Taiwan is a big name. But sir, having said that, what sort of a threat do you think the Chinese, when they say it's our own province, is sort of, I mean, the threat that is posed to Taiwanese, I mean, is that a threat? What exactly is brewing out there, sir?
Well, in my opinion, I feel that this recent meeting of the Quad, whenever the Quad meets, China...
The September meeting.
Yes, no, yes, recently in the White House for the first time, they had a face-to-face meeting between the Japanese Prime Minister, the Indian Prime Minister, Australian Prime Minister, and of course President Joe Biden. Before this, they had a virtual meeting, but every time there is a meeting, China is very, very upset, and China views this more as a security alliance against its own interests in the Pacific or in the Far East. So as far as this incident with Taiwan is concerned, I think it is a signal that China is sending that it is very, very irritated by this ongoing Quad. Apart from that, obviously China does not consider Taiwan any kind of a military threat, although they have very deep defense alliances with the United States, and the United States does have a commitment to defend Taiwan.
The Americans consider this as a rock-solid friendship.
Yes, and therefore, in answer to your question, is this something that might escalate in any way? Is this something that might become more serious? Personally, I don't think so.
But this posture of the Western countries or the Western alliance is going to remain like this.
Indeed.
A constant pressure on the Chinese.
Indeed, because you see, as far as Japan is concerned, they have an issue with the Senkaku Islands. When Australia recently asked for some international investigation into
regarding the
COVID, they reacted by curtailing a lot of trade, bilateral trade, etc. And then India, the Ladakh issue is there. So in that respect, there are many issues there. And of course, you know about the Straits of Malacca, the South China Sea and things like that. So there is no doubt in my mind that the United States wants to have a security alliance. The United States is supplying nuclear submarines to Australia. They have asked the Queen Elizabeth, the British carrier, to come to the region, and they have a very strong now military alliance with the Japanese in terms of exercises, in terms of equipment, and things like that. So there is no doubt in my mind that they want to put in place a security alliance just in case there is a conflict, that they will have enough people on their side. So obviously China is going to be irritated by that.
And this is exactly what is happening. So
Yes.
coming to you, Dr. Saab, now what we have witnessed over a period of time, like China has a very straightforward foreign policy, but the way their foreign office spokesperson normally used to talk, I mean, they used to be very docile and they would always talk between the lines. But this time they are also adopting a very aggressive posture. I mean, straight away that if you will do this, we will retaliate and you will get to know. Don't take China, don't look upon them as another country, somewhat like Iraq or something. But when we see the formation of AUKUS or Quad for that matter, yes, we do understand the Americans clear cut, they believe in one thing, and that is that they have two adversaries, one is China, one is Russia. Good enough. Now, Russia is on one side, but Chinese, when it comes to China, sir, the kind of pressure exerted from the eastern side, and then they are also preparing India as another station head officer or something, to look after the region. Now, the question which arises is that, do you think this is the right approach to contain China? Will China be contained? This kind of a pressure, what is that supposed to mean for the Chinese? And on top, what could be the possible reaction of China, sir? Because we have seen once the Chinese jets, they were in the air and they made sure that the American plane will land, and it landed. No other country has ever done that, sir.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you, Faisal Saab, for inviting me over. Actually, now the Americans are not dealing with the Chinese of 70s and 80s. China has changed. Americans at this stage, at this time, after the fiasco of withdrawal from Afghanistan, is desperately looking for adversary, because they have always had one. From the Cold War era, Soviet Union, and then when the Soviet Union was no more their enemy, then they created an enemy in the Gulf, had Iraq War I, then Iraq War II, then Afghanistan. They always have to have an enemy, and they are now desperately looking for a place of conflict. If it is not Middle East, then where is it? It is South China Sea. And containment of China, they should forget about it. If they were serious in containing China, they should have not.
It's a great alliance against China. How can they?
That's what I am coming at.
Themselves weak.
That's what I am coming at. If they were serious in containing China, they should have not gone into Iraq. They should have not gone into Afghanistan. They should have countered Al Qaeda through other means, like they did. Osama bin Laden was not killed in Tora Bora, isn't it? He was allegedly killed in some other operations, isn't it? Now they cannot contain China. By 2028, China is going to be the largest economy. As far as the military power is concerned, China has enough resources to invest into military power. Yes, Americans are desperate at this time, they are frustrated, and that is why they are selecting corners, trying to encircle China, isn't it? Just look at where Australia is located, where Japan is, and where India is, they are just trying to encircle China, whereas they cannot. Especially China is opening into Gwadar through CPAC. Why are the Americans so against CPAC and the Indians? Because China would not be dependent anymore on Strait of Malacca. They will have another opening. Therefore, I do not think that they will be able to contain China now, either economically or militarily. Yes, they will keep China under pressure, but China will continue to respond, and China will respond with force if required, although they are exercising strategic patience, because that's what their policy is.
What about the possibility or the probability of a conflict in the region, sir?
I do not see a physical engagement or a direct military engagement. That is against the theories of international relations that the two superpowers would directly engage. They have been doing it through proxies throughout the Cold War.
This is what we have learned throughout, sir, whether it's Afghanistan or it's Iraq or otherwise. Don't you think this could be China? Because, you know, I was listening to an interview of the Taiwanese Prime Minister or the President. I'm not sure whether they have a Prime Minister, but the lady was saying that around 85 to 90% of the Taiwanese, they do not want war.
Yes.
They want peace in the region because Taiwan is a growing economy and everybody is happy out there, except for 8 to 10% of those people
always there
with the old school of thought. So perhaps this equation tells a lot.
That's what I am saying, that I do not see any physical engagement. Although Americans may like to have one to create more chaos in the region, because they, as you said rightly, that they are preparing India also to act as a regional policeman. But I think they understand that India does not have that capacity to become a regional policeman, no matter how much of arms and ammunition is supplied to them, how much of political backing you give them. India does not have the capacity to stand in front of China. We have seen it in Ladakh, and India has seen it in February 19 also against Pakistan. If they cannot cow down Pakistan, how can they?
So they have moved another division in Ladakh?
Doesn't matter. They can. But will that division be able to have an impact on the balance of power in the region or not is yet to be seen, because they do not have courage to fight against Pakistan, what to talk of China. So I do not see physical engagement in the states of Taiwan. However, the pressure will remain there.
Okay. But situation will remain fluid. This
Yes.
is what you're saying. Now, Turil Saab, there was another very interesting soundbite of the US Treasury Secretary. And the lady was saying that, well, the Americans will run out of money by the mid of October, right? I'm sure you must have. What is that supposed to mean, sir? If they are, is the entire world going into a recession? What sort of consequences can it have on situations like what we are already discussing?
Faisal Saab, every year around this time, the US Treasury runs out of money. And then the President of the United States, the POTUS, gives
permission to
print. Exactly. So the American economy is already heavily indebted to the Chinese. The Chinese own a huge chunk of their treasury bonds. So everyone understands that physical fighting is not on. The kinetic warfare is an outmoded thing. They will only fight. The Americans will only fight
Sir,
very weak.
If it is an outdated
adversaries.
mode, so why do countries even like Pakistan or India end up, looking for these military assets from Russia or USA or France, for the matter of Britain?
Good question. That's an age-old question. Why?
And these are all nuclear powers, by the way.
That's a bread versus butter, guns versus butter thing. If you want to spend money on your people, then don't buy these expensive toys. You cannot win wars with this. A nuclear bomb cannot save you from imminent catastrophe. So the point is that the Chinese and Americans understand that. The Americans also know that the Chinese are a growing economy. Everybody here agrees to that, and they cannot. They're trying various means. They have increased their tariffs. Trump had done that. Biden have done that. There's no change in policy, and instantly this creation of China into an enemy is not new. It's not something which has come out of Afghanistan. They had already started building up China as an enemy. But how do they dominate China? Not by fighting. Yes, posturing, military posturing, flying out missions from Guam, or the Chinese doing that. China instantly considers, all of us know that Taiwan is their integral part of the mainland. They have no qualms about it. They know it, and they'll bide out their time like they did in Hong Kong and Macau and other places. So they will bide their time. They are in no great deal of hurry, and they are near the Straits of Taiwan. And every time they are upset, they show their military might, but that doesn't mean that they are going to attack. And similarly, the West also retaliates by military maneuvers, sending their ships and aircraft in that area. For example, you talked about the British frigate HMS Richmond, which has been sent there, part of the carrier force, but that's Richmond is there. So that doesn't mean that war is imminent, because war can be catastrophic. Nuclear armed countries, and Taiwan is part of the extended deterrence of the United States of America. They will provide it nuclear cover. They provide nuclear cover to South Korea. They provide nuclear cover to Japan. So all these countries are under the extended deterrence, and as you very correctly pointed out, they are within defense contract in which the United States is duty bound to come to their aid in case of war. So there's going to be going to be any fighting for war fighting. This is pressure tactics. The fighting which can take place is in the cyberspace. It is cyber attacks. The Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp were off. There was an outage for 5 or 6 hours. They say it was because of some problem in the infrastructure. Who knows that it might be the work of cyber warriors? There was a great deal of economic loss. People who are conducting business through Facebook and other
6% of their market value went down in those 6 hours.
Absolutely.
6% of Facebook means a lot of money.
And Mark Zuckerberg's personal wealth also went down by $6 billion. So anything that has to be done is now done through cyber warfare. You launch cyber attacks. Downtime is the word which is used in the cyber lexicon. The more the downtime, the more economic losses you cause on the enemy. So that is where you are fighting. And the Chinese have a large cyber force, cyber warriors, who are meant to do those kind of things. Rest, buzzing, flying aircraft, or sending your ships across, this is just showing the flag.
It's just sending a message.
Just sending a message. And
can you hear the roar?
But that doesn't matter really. China isn't frightened by that. And Taiwan gets frightened, yes. Taiwan, as you said, is a small country, growing economy. They don't want any war. Chinese also don't want any war. They know that going to war means
disaster.
Disaster.
Absolutely.
All that connectivity that they are looking forward to, which is their strategic thought process now, would be delayed, so retarded. So nobody wants war. China, least. Taiwan
because
also.
I believe war itself is a problem. It's not a solution for any problem.
Absolutely, absolutely
not. Now, Nasir Saab, another important factor. And then, when we talk about, obviously, the economic warfare, we learnt about this trade war. 2018 was the year when Donald Trump was talking about trade sanctions and, realigning the trade deals and everything. And he wanted to bring back the business into United States of America. Obviously, that was a great idea, but that is not possible within a matter of 4 years or something. But they have realized one thing, that if America is making $1, maybe China is making $2 from their own money, interestingly. And when China transfers a certain amount of their forex reserve into some other currency, you can see the dollar fluctuating. Plus, now we have also learned that the energy source, which primarily is coal in China, they could be put under certain sanctions because of this idea of going green or the global warming or climate change issue. So there are various ways to twist the arm of the Chinese through various sanctions otherwise. And the West is well capable of doing that. So this is what we've also seen on Russians, whether you talk about their athletes or otherwise. Similar sanctions could be imposed on Pakistan because the Americans, after the consultation of those 23 senators and coming up with that kind of an ideology that Pakistan maybe has outplayed us but has had a double game. You talk about the Afghan issue, sir, that is still not settling, and it is going to be a problem in the future also. So putting all these countries which are sort of close to each other, like Pakistan or Russia or China or the other bloc, let's put it this way, the bloc in making, what sort of a signal is that for the region, sir?
Well, first of all, let me say that we were talking about cyber warfare. The other means of warfare is obviously economic warfare. You know, there is this ancient general from Athens called Thucydides. The Thucydides trap. If there is an emerging economic power and they start to overtake the present dominant power, he said that there's bound to reach a point where there will be conflict between the two. Well, now with the both sides being, nuclear armed and mutually assured destruction and all, obviously this will not be a physical war unless some really madcap leader comes on one side, which I dare to say was, something which the Americans got very close to. But talking about the economy as such, the containment of China, I think that's a train that's left the station. If you go to China and you see the size of the infrastructure, the scale of their economy,
and it's the modern development, sir.
Yes.
New York was exposed during these reigns.
Yes.
Imagine.
And just like
that's 100-year-old.
Yeah, just like the Quad, where they are looking for allies, when you talk about the economic war and China is looking for allies, let me point out a very important difference between the two rivals. You can see that during Trump's time, the United States was becoming more insular. They were going against globalization and trying to bring jobs back into the country.
NAFTA issue and so much more.
So basically, they are going to have less relations in economic terms. Whereas China, with the Belt and Road Initiative or CPEC, is inviting countries from all over the world and connecting them. So see the difference in their economic standing going into the future. Now, this point was not just raised by Donald Trump. The public opinion in the United States compelled Biden to continue to talk against China and having sanctions and things like that. So when you talk about bringing jobs back into the United States, if you are not a communist country or any kind of dictatorship, mismanaged dictatorship is what I'd like to say. If you are a capitalist country, let's say I am a large industrialist in the United States and I'm competing globally. If I am unable to reduce the cost of labor, I will not be able to compete, right? That is the reason that I went and invested in China to take advantage of their cheaper labor. Now, if you compel me to bring my factory back to the United States, that is not free market capitalism, okay? You cannot force me to do that. I can go to a court and say, this is my money, I have a right to make profits, I have a right to be competitive. How can you force me to bring back a factory from Mexico, for instance, where I can provide more competitive prices through cheaper labor? So you see, that's the difference. But as I see it, whether it is because of Mr. Warbucks, the big military industrial complex in the United States that continues to provide reasons for them to go out and spend tons of money on armaments.
Or create hostile situations where people or the countries end up buying your product.
Which may be behind a Quad. Because today, if you talk about this specter of war, which in my opinion should be unthinkable, but if you look at the Second World War, the United States dominated because they had the capacity to produce aeroplanes, jeeps, tanks, far
at
greater.
An unbelievable rate.
Yes. Today the Chinese are the largest navy in the world. They have more than 400 battleships, whereas the United States has 200 and something. But apart from that, when I was telling you about the submarines that are going to be supplied to Australia, China today is producing one nuclear submarine every 15 months. So if you actually talk about a war, China does not even need military allies. Apart from the United States, apart from the fact that they spend far more on defense than the next 9 countries put together. But how effective and how productive and what level of research and development do they have? That is the key question. China...
Because Nasir Sahab, I'll add something here, because we always used to talk about the Silicon Valley, technology. You're talking about innovation, inventions, you're talking about high quality products, you're talking about artificial intelligence and whatnot. So there was a time, I remember in 80s, once I bought a bicycle that was made in China, it had the pathetic quality. It practically bended, right, sir? And we used to make fun, no more Chinese. But now, sir, when you go abroad and you pick up any product, whether it's a PCAP or a pair of joggers or a coat, anything, sir, you just look at it and it's unbelievable, isn't it, sir? Now the point is that the Chinese, their students, whenever they went abroad, they studied and they returned. Look at the remittances, highest in the world, sir, correct? And the kind of technology they acquired, and they have worked upon it and made it even superior than that of the Americans, sir. Because when I visited China, I've seen about 22 states in USA. I was never impressed because I expected that. But when I went to China, sir, I was shocked. Literally shocked that what have they done. And I'm talking about 2011, that was my last visit. So in the next 10 years, I'm sure they must have done some more wonders. So China is unbelievable. Whether we like it or whether the West likes it or doesn't like it, that's the reality. Now, sir, coming to you, another important point that I want to raise is, sir, there was a time when the British, they were the superpower, and it was said that, because they occupy so much of land that the sun doesn't set there. And it was true. So when you are economically so strong, then the expansion and the finally, and then you're unable to manage all that, and then you eventually shrink back and another country comes up. That's what we witnessed during the Second World War. The Americans came to rescue the British or the French and the rest of the world, and eventually we got to see 5 superpowers, all those powers who were the so-called the anti, which nexus they used to call it, sir? the
anti-communist?
Yeah.
Axis and allies.
Yeah. So it was, there were 3 countries, Germany, Italy and Japan. The way whatever was done to those countries, we all have witnessed and read about it. It's unbelievable. Look at what happened to Germany, 2 pieces. What happened to Japan? Forget about Nagasaki and Hiroshima. The carpet bombing that took place is unbelievable. And then the kind of sanctions imposed. But sir, 5 countries, China, Russia, the so-called the anti, perhaps the group against these 3 countries, Britain, France, and they became the so-called the superpowers or the members of the NSC. So they were the decision makers. They had the power to veto and everything. Don't you think, sir, now it's been over almost, it's been 80 years or perhaps more than that since the Second World War. Do you think the time has come that emergence of another superpower is there? And you can't stop this cycle, sir. This is bound to happen and will happen. And the Americans who once ruled will eventually, because too much of expansion, too much of money spending, and one can go wrong at so many places. So do you think the time has come now?
Sure, why not? One is reminded of Paul Kennedy's Rise and Fall of Great Empires. The cycle takes that much of time, but that does not mean that America is winning at this time. Yes, economically they will go down by 2028, the China will overtake them. But militarily, yes, maybe another 20-25 years they will remain number 1 state in the world. However, as I said in the beginning, the China, they are not dealing with the China of 80s and 70s. China has changed. China has changed, and we are witnessing at this time divergent strategic concepts of the 2 blocks. China has not made a military bloc, isn't it? But it has developed an economic bloc. As Nasir was saying that, China has outreached to even to the smallest country in the region, Sri Lanka. They have an outreach. Pakistan. Africa, everywhere, and it is benefiting the people of those states actually. That is the difference between the American investment and the Chinese investment. Chinese invest in the projects of that state which benefits the people directly, and that is why people welcome the Chinese. Whereas Americans, if they are investing, suppose they are giving loan to somebody, they will give weapons instead, isn't it? So that does not directly contribute to the people's lives. They have done it with Pakistan. I mean, we have seen it.
Afghanistan is another
Afghanistan,
example.
another.
What a disaster.
Biden accepted himself that we did not come to Afghanistan for nation building, isn't it? We came to take revenge of 9/11. So they have taken the revenge, and instead, what has happened to them? I mean, it is a most humiliating defeat, and they have started to accept it now during their ratification, etc., in the congressional hearing. My point is that they cannot cow down China now. The time is gone. If they were interested, they should have not gone into Afghanistan and Iraq, and they should have concentrated on containing China at that time, 99, 2000. At that time, they could have, had they formed Quad and AUKUS or something, at that time when SCO was not that active, it may have been possible, but not now.
Now, sir, I fail to understand on when you talk about the Shanghai, this SCO, and you talk about Quad, you know, when like A union B and A intersection B, I mean, India is a common factor. What is that supposed to mean, sir?
Nothing.
Can they be in two boats?
India will end up losing being in Quad or being in SCO. Why? Because it is in direct confrontation with China.
This is exactly what I'm saying.
That's what I am also saying, that even if they have joined SCO and concurrently member of Quad also, but they do not have the capacity to face off China. And that is why it will be counterproductive. No, China would always open its
Sir,
gates.
the head of defense says that, you know, we are all geared up. We can take China and we can take Pakistan.
They always.
And 2.5 end war, even Kashmir.
They have been talking of
And now he's talking about the
war
war of civilizations, by the way. I'm sure you must have seen that interview of General Bapit Ravan.
They have been talking about two-front war before also, but one by one also they could not face. 2019 Pakistan, they were humiliated. 220 Ladakh, they were humiliated. They do not have the capacity, they do not have the will. The soldiers do not have the will. Please understand what I think. Maybe history proves me wrong. They will prove to be the army of Ashraf Ghani when the time comes against China or even Pakistan. They do not have the will.
That's a strong statement.
That's what I am making. They do not have the courage. They do not have, as you say, they do not have that will.
Sir, look at their movies in Bollywood, sir. There are two heroes there like
Very
Iron Man and Superman and Spider-Man. You know,
Yeah.
this is how they look upon the rest
We
of the
have
world.
seen
that
it.
We can do anything and everything.
We have seen it. We have seen it.
You know, Akshay
Broad
Kumar
daylight.
and Shah Rukh Khan and all.
Sir, broad daylight, 27th February, within 10 minutes. They fell down from the skies as if they were the robots, isn't it? Or they were the drones. They were not the fighter. Yes, a strong media, a strong nationalistic appeal,
Propaganda, fake news.
Hindutva, propaganda, strong. Yes, we are lucky that Abhinandan fell down in Pakistani territory. Otherwise, we would have never been able to prove that we have shot down their aeroplane.
They said that they have shot down our jet also, if you remember. But coming to you, Durrani Saab, now, the latest development as far as LAC is concerned, sir, we have also learned that, in fact, they have really strengthened their military might, I would say, the Indian military might in Sikkim region. That's very vulnerable. Ladakh, East Ladakh. And also there are stories that perhaps the Indian forces, they are also planning for a misadventure as far as Kashmir is concerned. Or perhaps they want to, you know, do something in the region so that there is a conflict around Khunjarab region, whether through Ladakh or through the LOC, I would say, or perhaps by some other means. What's the probability of this, sir? Because since you write about it, you always talk about it. And do you believe that if some sort, because there is a probability there could be some sort of a clash at the LAC, and it has been the case. Forget about the full-fledged war. Do you think, sir, that can trigger some sort of a problem in the region, sir, other than or apart from Afghanistan? And if there is still mounting pressure on the eastern side of China, do you think China can balance that, sir? Or that equilibrium could be there?
If Faisal Rehman feels that there can be any probability of a clash, then our generals also know it. You know, there was a Corps Commanders Conference which was held recently, in which they said that we are all prepared, and whatever India is doing, it is just to divert attention. Faisal Sahab, you must understand there are lots of problems within India itself. You see, there's the farmers' protests. Farmers have been killed. The Muslim
in Assam.
Assam,
second largest state, sir,
yeah, but
of Muslims after Kashmir.
Yeah, but the farmers' protest is in Lucknow and other places in northern India. But the Muslim,
and their home minister says that, you know, not more than 20% Muslims in the country. If the number goes around 30%, that is the problem, and we'll make sure it doesn't. Yeah, so what is that supposed to mean?
So they have the problems internally, so they cannot. And Pakistan is ready. Pakistan is ready to give them a bloody nose. And as Shamsi Sah very correctly pointed out, they witnessed themselves, they experienced themselves that they could not go beyond one abortive strike, two, if you want, one at Jabba, in which they killed a few trees, and then Abhinandan misadventure.
Two crows also.
And
why,
then, and,
why do you forget about that, sir?
And you know about what happened with Abhinandan. He had to be escorted by a female staffer of a Ministry of Foreign Affairs,
and handed over to the
Ms. Bhukti, who took her there and said, go back to your country. So what I'm trying to say, Pakistan is prepared, China is prepared. China gave them a bloody nose last summer. It was hand-to-hand combat. They were fighting with clubs and fists and rocks.
Literally.
Yeah, literally, and they killed 20 of them, of the Indians. So, as very correctly pointed out, Indians have little appetite for fight. They are not ready to go into China or into Pakistan to fight a war, because both these countries are very well prepared to handle them. The Pakistani armed forces, they are very well prepared. They, for the last 20 years, they've been fighting a war. They know how to fight a war. They have been blooded in action. And nowadays, being on the line of control is actually being at a softer station as compared to the former tribal areas, because that's where the fighting is on. So the Pakistan armed forces are prepared. India is not ready to fight that kind of war with Pakistan. And with the nuclear deterrence in place, it is again high stakes. And I would like to go back to China and in America. The American general, Jack Milley, talked to his Chinese counterpart, General Lee, that hold on, buddy, we are not going to fight with you. Trump might be an idiot, but we are not going to fight with you. So they are also scared. They don't want to ruffle feathers. They don't want to fight the Chinese. I'm talking about the Americans.
Correct.
So whatever they are doing, muscle flexing or whatever, Biden would talk to Xi Jinping. He has just talked. There was a ticker just now.
Yeah.
So
after 7 months.
After 7 months, but the purpose was to lessen the tensions. So they understand that they cannot fight China with the nuclear deterrence on both sides. Very correctly pointed out.
Two superpowers have never fought.
They have
in history, right, sir?
They have never fought, and they don't want to fight. But the muscle flexing goes on. Perhaps it is to reassure.
And this is going to continue.
It is going to continue, but it would not lead to a hot war. Not in either Chinese soil or Russian soil or American soil, or America was already very far off, protected by 2 oceans, or on the Taiwanese soil. So everybody is biding its time. China is known to be very, very patient. He used the word strategic patience. So they can be patient for thousands of years, wait for the moment when it's ripe.
So long and then for this moment.
They're there now. They can wait, and they can take over Hong Kong. They will wait, and they will take Taiwan when the time comes. For the time, they don't want to fight. They have good trade relationship. They want to capitalize on it. Taiwan has very good technology. They don't want to lose it. So why
They
should
worked so hard to get there, sir.
right?
Why should they
why
lose
sh-
their
why should-
position
why-
because of the tension between two other countries?
Why should anybody fight? And Chinese policy, as we all know,
One China.
is one China and connectivity. They don't want to fight. They want to connect the world. They want to earn money. They want to invest. They've got deep pockets. They don't need to fight. And they are building up the People's Liberation Army, Navy, Air Force, everything. So they have a sufficiently strong conventional force to deter the
Any threat.
Yes, and so the Indians dare not go into fight the Chinese, and they will not dare fight us. We are ready and prepared to give them another very bloody nose.
Well, I hope that situation doesn't arise, but if needed,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
answer
we are
is
ready.
yes. Anyway, sir, since I was just told, I'm running out of time, I'll say thank you so much, gentlemen, for being a part of the show. Nasir Saab, Zia Saab, and Tarul Saab, it was a pleasure having you. And that's all we have for this hour. Inshallah, I'll see you at 8:05 tomorrow. Till then, you take good care. Khuda Hafiz.